So I've just started the stream. I'm not seeing Peter joined us as of yet. Again, Sandy will be 15 minutes late if the meeting is still in progress. We do have a quorum, Mayor Eady, and it is 6 o'clock.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Ask if there's any, ask for calling the roll, I guess, first.
Yes, Mayor Eady,
Present.
Reeve Eman, Councillor Koulis, Councillor Evans,
Present.
Councillor Hines, Councillor Jemison,
Present.
Councillor Sydney.
Present.
We do have a quorum, Mayor Eady. We can proceed.
A declaration of opportunity interest in the general nature thereof. Not hearing any. Okay. So I guess we're here this evening to discuss a little further the municipal structure review that was made up by Mr. Fournier. And the floor is open to anyone who wants to speak.
Oh.
Does it come down to what are the next steps, or is it like where are we at in the process?
Getting things rolling. I think one of the first things that needs to be done is just to conclude any feedback to Mr. Fournier that council thinks is important to note as far as the completion of the report. So the report's still in what's called a final draft. I think Mr. Fournier is still looking for final comments, at which point he'll, remove the draft and finalize the report. If so, anything from notable errors or any content that requires clarification or maybe it's not accurate, certainly those types of things. So that level of feedback. And then I guess obviously the next part of it would be for council to determine next steps in process should they wish to pursue any recommended actions of the report or to investigate any of the of those recommendations in further depth. So I guess that's the challenge before council.
Based on that, is there any comments? Councillor Koulis.
Well, my own personal opinion was that this whole report was brought forward because of the impending structure of our senior management team and the fact that some of them are heading into a retirement phase, and we will have a municipally run government with no direction, in the sense that what do we do as far as replacing some of these senior managers as they leave. And most municipalities are, in our area, as I understand it, are governed by a CAO. And ours was, I guess, at one time many years ago, and we've sort of migrated to what we have today. And I do believe that we need to move forward with that CAO structure. So again, I'm not particularly able to say how that comes about, but I think it needs to come about, and within a very short period of time, we need to move ahead with this rather than putting it in a file like we do with a lot of things and not moving on it. We need to get this thing done and then move on with the next half of this term. That's my feeling.
Okay. Any other comments? Tom.
I know depending on how much detail we want to get into tonight, but after Clerk Barmore saying, is there any changes, omissions, any clarifications and stuff like that, would it be advantageous to say, okay, everybody, we have until Friday or next Friday to get that into, I don't know if we send it to the clerk's department to send off to Mr. Fournier, or if we send it to him directly, I'm not sure. But that, like, if we start putting timelines on it, so it doesn't sit on the shelf, like Councilor Coolidge said, because I agree with that. It's just, I guess my thing is kind of, what do we do next? We've got this draft final report. It's got to become a final report. Then council has to make decisions. But I guess I'm just trying to figure out, how does that process work?
Okay, anything else? Rick Grassman.
Yeah, just as a point of assistance, I think Steve Fournier is looking for any feedback from staff and council members regarding the report. I think probably submitting the comments to him directly was the most appropriate, and he had indicated that he would then take those and filter them and modify his report as he felt appropriate within the boundaries that he's been set up to initiate the report and to complete the report. So at this point, he's looking for feedback both from council and from senior management team members.
Okay, anything else? Councilor Singh.
So that being said, I think, would it be the right thing then to set a deadline for any feedback being sent to Mr. Fournier by either Friday next, or like whatever? But is that something council can do so that the ball gets rolling here, or where's how do we make the timeline work?
I think that makes sense if we're going to give them something in writing that we do set a deadline. I like that idea, Councillor Cindy.
When that is, I don't know. I don't know how much time we would need.
Councillor Jamison.
Yeah. My thing is, this is a problem that we seem to keep running into. We take a long time to get things going. So like, if we're going to do that, let's set a hardcore date, get it back to him so that he can get this back to us. Because if we, like, this is what I don't understand. We get all this information and then we sit on it for months and months and months. And it's just, I find that even us as council, we have a hard time sometimes completing our tasks. So like, whatever it's going to take, let's make a decision. Let's get the information from Steve, whatever we need to make the decision, and start moving in the direction that we want to move in, or whatever direction that is. I have no idea, but like, let's do something, because we're having these committees of a whole and we really don't, there's no real discussion going on. So what's the purpose of this meeting? Like, now we're saying we don't have enough information from Mr. Fournier to put a plan in place. Well, what's the purpose of this meeting? I don't know.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying, like, why this is what happens. Like, he did all the interview process. He spoke, sat down with us by Zoom meeting. We had a meeting. All of that information came out. Then we went over the report, and now we need still more information. So all I'm saying is, like, can we tighten up the timelines? So take a week, then figure out if that's what we're going to do. Whatever questions we need to be answered, can we actually set a date that we're going to figure this out, make a decision, and move forward? Because this is, the whole point in this process is sometimes things get dropped off the plan. and things don't move forward, and we seem to get stagnant, and we're trying to deal with things that we've been dealing with for years, and it's just frustrating. So, and this is the whole purpose for me, and why I think Renfrew does need a CAO to keep us moving. Like, how many times are we going to meet, say nothing, and decide we're going to ask questions, and still nothing happens? I just want to see something move forward, like one way or the other, so that we're not having these meetings over and over again and nothing's happening. Does that make sense?
I guess that's why we're having this meeting, is to discuss it, to see how we are going to move forward.
Okay.
Okay. Revimo.
Thank you. Thank you. And I guess when we talked about this at council, that was my worry about sending it to the committee of the whole. Whereas if a committee drives it, it gets done. And if you take a look at the implementation of the action plan, section 4 of his document, essentially what we should be doing is just adding dates to that. Put another column beside it, beyond 222, and just put some dates in. So like Councillor Sidney has said, we, a week to get the information back, and then November 1st, adopt and implement the strategy, and then December 1st, number 2 or number 3, whatever. And because otherwise we're, if you go off 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then all of a sudden you're too close to, then it's Thanksgiving, and then we go another week, and then all of a sudden it's Christmas, and then it's January, and then it's budget, and so then it's May. So I think, the first thing to do is take his section 4, slap some dates down on it, and give somebody the responsibility for meeting those. Because if it goes into the committee, the whole, if it goes into the committee, the whole vacuum, that's where it's going to stay. We'll be talking in May about what we're going to do. Because if we don't do anything within the next 4 or 5 weeks to start this, then we're 6 months behind right away because of the Christmas season and then budget. And if COVID-2 or COVID-3 hits, then it slows it down even more. So I would suggest that if somebody wants to take the lead and whack together some tentative dates, circulate them to council, and if we can agree on that, then circulate them to the senior managers and Steve Fournier, asking if there are any obvious impediments, and then aim for them. Because otherwise it's going to be May before we do anything.
Councillor Sidney.
I agree with that 100%. Now, would that make it that tonight we could pass a motion to have the HR committee do that section 4 and then report it back to council within a certain amount of time? Because it to me, this is an HR thing. So, and then finance, obviously, but as far as the human resources aspect of it, I agree. We'll be sitting here spinning the wheel for months. So if it's like, Peter said, we could put some dates down on this and have a committee look at it, then send it back to council by a certain date. Council still gets input, and then we go from there.
Why can't council make input right now?
Sure.
Revimo.
So if I might, then we also should dedicate somebody to speaking with legal counsel, because there is some pretty tricky language when you're addressing these issues, so that there is not an appearance of constructive dismissal, nor of harassment. If we start talking about retirement dates and presuming there's retirement dates, and it has to be done very, very softly, because you don't want to be perceived to be pushing somebody out the door, because it's costly. And then also there's a question of red circling some positions likely. There's also questions of when, when positions open up, how do you reestablish them and what is the wage grid? So I think, there are a number of layers, and again, that's, my suggestion is it goes to a committee. Doesn't matter which one, as long as there's one that has the responsibility for getting council to a decision-making point and then getting council to act on the plan once there is a decision-making. Otherwise, as I said, we're going to be in May looking at each other, and then it'll be July 1st. And we'll have wasted 6 or 8 months. So that's, I guess I can't stress that enough. Otherwise, like Councillor Jameson, I'm not sure what we're doing if we don't come out of this with, hey, somebody has a responsibility for this, and making sure council's fully informed.
Councillor Jamison.
Yes, I support that totally, 100%. And that's just what I'm saying. Like the HR, specifically Revimo, is the best person to do all of this because that's what he's been doing with other HR issues. And this is an HR thing. So he knows what we're going to need. So let's delegate, let's let him do that so that we can move forward, because bring it expecting the committee of a whole to make a decision. There's not enough of us around the table who know enough about this to actually, take the lead, except for Revimo.
I don't follow that whatsoever. When you say there's not enough of us around the table to know whatever you're saying, are you saying that for the HR committee? You're saying that for all of council?
I'm just saying, Peter's the one that has the experience, and in just the questions he's saying that we need to, make sure somebody has to speak with legal counsel. I mean, I'm sure not in the position to do that. And I don't know anybody else sitting around the table in front of the camera tonight who is able to do that, except for Peter. That's all I'm saying.
Councillor Evans. Give your hand up, Councillor Evans.
No, not at all.
Okay. Sandy's not here, so we don't have her comment. Whatever. I thought tonight we might discuss some of what that report said. I don't agree with that whole report myself personally. I think it's quite flawed. But Mr. Fournier's not here to address. But I do like the idea of any council member who has questions to forward to him, that we would do that. And I mean, this is a draft he gave us. It's not a final report. And I'd certainly like to see him take some of the questions into account. Like financially, as an example, he quoted with CAO maybe up to 167,000. Well, add benefits is 200,000. Add housing or whatever we need for that person, you're probably up to 250,000. That's a lot of money to throw onto the taxpayer without a system of doing, whether it be through nutrition or something of that nature. And that money's got to come from someplace. One thing, so I wasn't real pleased with not seeing a full financial package. And does the CAO then have to have extra staff to help him do his job, etc.? So I think there needs to be something there. I didn't see no mention in the report of the things we've got done. Seen in the last 6 years, I don't think that there be a community with the amount of people we have, whether they have a CAO or not, and they probably would have, that's accomplished any more in the last 6 years that we've accomplished. And I think that's our objective, is when we come to a council, is to get work done, and we have got a lot of work done. I'm pretty happy with that. He points out a lot of things about Aaron Pryor. Well, anybody that knows anything about Aaron Pryor, I think they went through, I'm not sure, I think it's been minimum 3, maybe 4 CAOs in the last few years. They had a huge turnover with staff. whatever. So I don't know if that's a good system you want to get into, you know. But I don't know. I think there's a lot more discussion that could happen on this, and you know, I do think we need to get something out to Mr. Fournier of our concerns. That's my opinion on it. Councillor Evans.
Mayor Eadie, thank you, Mayor Eadie. I do share your sentiments, your concerns as well. And again, I will be trying to my best to send Mr. Fournier a list of, again, our concerns. Another level of bureaucracy or government in our, and again, but understanding if our town staff are saying the system's broken, then we'll try our best to fix it. But again, under, you know, obviously haste might make waste, and I understand there might be benefits, but I also see the burden of $250,000 or at least 160 to the town, and that needs definitely to be considered, because I don't know where we would actually take that from.
And there's other things in the report too that I'd like to see further discussion on. If I go back just a wee bit, the council we've had, this council and the previous council, we've been a very aggressive council in that wanting to get a lot of things done, and we've certainly pushed our senior managers. There's no question. You can see what we've added on to them. Like you look at Clerk Bulmer, all of a sudden he's got economic development shoved on, which you didn't have before. You know, you look at Director Aswin, I was at Waste Management, that didn't have before. Director Hill, basically with the new rec center type situation, that's been a huge extra load. Then on top of that, right now, the COVID is a huge time taker. But at the end of the day, our senior managers are pulled together enough to get this all done. And they work, you know, they work hard at it, and you have to give them credit for that. Like the council ourselves, you know, maybe we have to sit back and take a little bit of blame ourselves. And there's one thing in the report about grass cutting. Kind of bothered me a little bit because it was at a finance meeting, a budget meeting not too many years ago, when we're talking about buying a bigger machine for recreation and possibly cutting some or all of the grass for public works. Well, it was council's decision at that particular time to not buy the bigger machine, but to go ahead and buy the two smaller ones and leave it as was. That wasn't a senior management decision, even though they hadn't come to an agreement on anything, but council had the opportunity at that time to go ahead and make that decision. So somehow I don't know, there's, you know, I'm not whether it's a good decision or a bad decision. That was a council decision, and you know, that was the way it was there. The one thing that I do see as a, you can call it, I'm not sure it's a weakness or it's just an overload of work, is HR. I think that's been recognized at the Lake Group too. Whatever they, all our department heads get involved in HR an awful lot, and somebody talking. Anyway, nobody here. Anyway, the HR issue. You know, when you think of you know, all the negotiations that go on, you think of if there's a grievance happens, if there's an issue, somebody leaves the organization, we have to hire somebody else. That's an awful burden on our managers who would be better versed probably managing versus looking after HR issues. And so the Lake Group is discussing pretty clearly that maybe there could be a HR department for a number of different municipalities. Beanbo had mentioned, I think a little while ago, but we take the 7 municipalities, there's around 300 employees. So that's, you know, that's a lot of employees for what the county has. What do you have county? There 700 or 800 employees, Peter?
Yeah, approximately 770, I believe.
So, you know, that's, so there's no sense in having 7 HR departments. That makes no sense. That would take a lot of burden off our senior management team as they sit today and free their time up for other things. And there may be other aspects of our community too that can be taken off. You know, whether it be, there's been discussion on different things, and so it's hard to say. Like, I think we need to be a lot of discussion around that type of thing, whatever. And I think that you know, to this point in time, since I've been on this council, and I know it's not perfect, absolutely not perfect, but we've got a lot of work done. We've got a pile of work done, and I have to give credit to council members, but I also have to give a lot of credit to all the senior managers, you know, that put it together. And I could name lots of different issues, like when they're doing, as an example, you know, a presentation for like the rec center, that was told to me by John Yakubuski, it was probably the best presentation he ever seen. We've also been told when it comes to roads, about the presentations we're making and the applications we're making were a model for a lot of other municipalities. So we have I'd like to point out, we have an awful lot of really good things happening right now. And because we have a wee bit of dissension, I guess you could say, I need to be somewhat careful myself in thinking where we move forward to. Bimo.
Thank you, and I'm not being disrespectful, I disagree, but I think if we try and build a management model that's is predicated on the personalities, knowing that, you know, within the next 5 to 7 years, most of those, if not all of those persons will be gone, I don't think we do the organization any good. And I point out to page 12 of the report, on paper, everyone is in charge, but in reality, no one really is. And I didn't hear anybody offer comment suggesting that is wrong. So page 12, right in the middle of the report, in the middle of that page, and it goes on to say there is now a need for a manager, one who is assigned the prescribed CAO roles and responsibilities. And I can't see how we can ignore that. So I think we have to take a serious look at it, because if any one of the managers, for whatever reasons, the directors decides to leave tomorrow, whether it's health or a better opportunity or whatever, are we going to hire someone on the same job description they hold right now? I don't have that impression from any of the conversations council's had in the last 18 months that they're 100% committed to maintaining this model without the persons that are in play. So if that's the case, then we're making a mistake if we're building a model to manage the municipality and its resources based on existing personnel, because they may not be there tomorrow. I think that one sentence, on paper, everyone is in charge, but in reality, no one really is. No one has disputed that. I don't think, I'm not putting anybody on the spot, but I don't think you would have any vociferous opposition to that statement from any of the managers as well, or 100% of the managers. So I'll just point that out.
Well, I read that part of it myself, and I can't help but agree. But for 33 years, with nobody in charge, they got an awful lot of stuff done. So that is probably a weakness in the senior management team, as to 5 guys sitting in a room, and if they don't come to an agreement, then there don't seem to be a method that, like, if there's no voting system, I'm not sure exactly how they would
You hear
do it
okay?
or entertain it. Somehow they managed to get things done, but in theory, yeah, there's no one person in charge. There are basically 5 equal managers and 5 equal chairs of senior management and or CEO position, if you want to call it that, but maybe that's. But yeah, that's the point. That's what we're here talking about. This is because there's pros and cons to everything.
So if I might, I guess that's the first question. If one of the positions opens tomorrow, are we hiring on the same job description? If our answer is no, with the same expectations, then we have to look at doing something different. If we say yes, we're going to hire 5 new directors using the same job descriptions and the same approach, then we might as well sign off and get ready for hockey.
I don't think that was ever the intention of this report.
Good.
I think the idea was, it was brought to us by the senior managers that we maybe go ahead and do this because of nutrition. And because of all the retirements in the next 5 years, that possibly if one of them retired, et cetera, that we would bring in somebody as a CAO clerk, CAO treasurer, or something of that nature. I think that was kind of the first thoughts on this going back a couple to 3 years ago, maybe now. There was kind of a talk on moving in that kind of a direction. That's what I understood anyway. I never did hear up until this report that we're just even thinking about going higher in a CAO and keeping everything else status quo. We have Councillor Hines with us now. Ever. You're muted right off the start end here.
Yeah, and I'm filling in here for Mike Aslan because there was no way I could get on anyway. I'll talk to Kim about that later, but I am here at the town office, so I
Okay.
packed my bags and came here.
All righty. Well, we've had some general discussion. One of the things that was discussed to start with was that anything to do with that report, that we set a date and get back to Mr. Fournier as individuals, whether it be senior management team or council members, as to any concerns about the report or any suggestions. Did I say that right, Councillor Sidney?
Yes. I think we need to set a date to, if anybody has feedback, to go to Mr. Fournier and pick a date that it goes back to him so he can revise his draft final report. But I do, I agree with a lot of things that are being said all over the place today. The one thing that I guess to sort of go to the far end of it is that we kind of have to make a decision if it's this, like, this is all about, people retiring and changing and all that stuff. Well, we kind of have to make a decision in what direction we're going, because we do know that most of the senior managers in the next 3 to 5 years are going to retire. And that's retirement. That's not if they get a better offer. That's not with illness. That's not with anything. So at what point do we make a decision on how Renfrew moves forward? Like, I think that's kind of where I'm stuck at is, are we going with the CAO model? Are we going with a different type of model? Are we going to stay status quo? I think what I feel is that we've got to make a decision and then start putting the pieces into play so that when the time comes, we're ready to do that. Financially, we've looked at it the right way, because it is a big financial thing. And I'm not going to dispute that. And that's very concerning on my end. But where are we going? I guess is where I get confused. So I do think we need to set a date to get back, but somewhere along the line, council has to make a decision on what direction we're going. And do we use this draft as the idea? Does it, like we talked about earlier, does it go back to any type of committee to finalize some dates and direction? Does it still do committee of a whole? And, again, I think the big concern before Councillor Hines got here is that we don't want this, the wheels spinning and still be talking about this in May. Like, we don't want it to get put on the shelf. So what's the best direction to get this thing looked at, addressed properly, total information brought forward so that the council can make the best decision for the future of Renfrew, not based on the last 50 years of what we've been doing. It's about moving forward in a new direction potentially, but where and at what point do we make that decision?
Could I ask just what the big concerns are about embracing some of this report, or where are people having challenges with it, issues with it? And I agree with Councillor Sydney that we need to kind of sort out what we're doing, and that's what the whole reason for doing this report, wasn't it? That this is an opportunity to, if we see fit, change the system and make it a better fix for the town of Renfrew, and sort out exactly how we want it if we're not happy with whatever people are not happy with now. I think we need to address that and then go from there and say, yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to move forward and cite that this report is recommending a full CAO system. And I do apologize for missing the first part of this, but I would even think if we could get into a partial CAO system at this time, at least we'd have a feel for how that works, and maybe it would address some of the issues that people feel that we're having right now, and that they don't have that connect that they'd like.
Okay. Anything else?
So can I just ask where what's the issue here, that we're all going to just call Mr. Fournier and aren't we a group that, can we not express that to one another, or what your issues are with it? I just kind of said mine, but. Okay then.
Councillor Koulis.
To answer Councillor Hines, that was sort of voiced at the start of this meeting. Of course, you weren't present, but it was basically a case where some members of council, including His Worship, doesn't really agree with most of the findings in this report, and is most confident, and most of us are, with the accomplishments of the senior management team and what they've done over the last, I don't know, 2 decades maybe, but certainly within the last 6 years of this council's term. But the main reason for looking at this, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, was because of the attrition that's looking us right in the face over the next 5 years or less, where we're going to lose members of the senior management. And how do we accommodate the town of Renfrew with these losses? So do we, as Reeve Emo said, do we just hire replacements and pigeonhole them back into those positions and on the same pay grid and carry on like we've been doing, or do we in fact get a CAO to oversee the operation, and in time we will recover a fair amount of our costs, I'm sure, with wages, in that we won't need as qualified people to be senior managers. We'll have directors, of course, and that sort of thing in various departments in the town. But I guess to comment on Mayor Eadie's, I know we have accomplished a lot of things over the last 6 years, and that's great, and I'm sort of proud of it too. But at the same time, I feel, based on some of the most recent emails that some of us have been receiving about various things going on in Renfrew, this council is getting a little long in the tooth, in that people are getting a little more discontent with some of the decisions we make, some of the things we've done, some of the ways they're presented to the public, and then we take the backlash as a bunch of fools and a bunch of idiots. And I don't know if anybody has read anything that's been posted on social media over the last week, but we took an awful flogging from the middle of last week on about the welcome to Renfrew electronic signs that we're proposing, and what a bunch of fools we are for spending $300 and some thousand on these signs. And in that explanation, there was nothing said about where that money comes from. The 90% of the ratepayers think it's coming out of their tax dollars, and none of that was explained properly, was not relayed to the media properly from somebody at the town of Renfrew. And as a result, we took an awful slathering over it. And that's just one of many things we seem to, are subject to. And I don't believe I believe that we had one person, and I agree with what it says in that report on page whatever Peter Emo just quoted, that there is a lot of people in charge, but there's nobody in charge. So if you ask one person why this happened, it's always somebody else's department. And besides all that, I think council needs some direction. I think this council needs somebody to if for lack of a better term, to sort of straighten us up and tell us how this has to be done and when it has to be done. And here's a good example tonight. There's 6 or 7 of us sitting here, and not very many people are saying much about this report that we obviously spent some money on. And we should justify it by at least making a decision on it in a timely fashion without, as Revimo said, getting it into the fall and winter and holiday season and budget time, and then it just gets forgotten and put on, in file 13 sort of thing. I think we need to deal with this thing, deal with it now and move on and get back to doing business like we're supposed to do. As a council, we're supposed to make these decisions, and let's make these decisions. Let's quit, dancing around the bush. Let's move ahead.
Thanks, Mike, for those comments to bring me up to date. I apologize for not being here at the start, but anyway, I appreciate your comments.
Councillor Sidney and then Revimo.
I totally agree with Councillor Koulis on the majority of it. I do think, I think there's a lot more that's sort of going on in this whole situation. And, I don't think it's, in my opinion, I don't think what we're talking about is, moving forward with a potential CAO model or not, or whatever, figuring out what we're going to do when our senior managers retire. And I don't think it's about, what we've done in the past. It's more about, if we keep talking about what we did in the past, that's great, but it's about going forward, and it's about moving Renfrew forward. And, I think Mike Koulis hit the nail on the head when he talked about the signs. When the only information that's getting sent to the media that gets put on social media is whatever the media picks out of, if they watched YouTube or whatever. The headline literally reads, Renfrew's paying $338,000 for welcome signs and 4 spots in Renfrew. That's it. If you don't read the article, you just read the headline, and that's what it is. So there's more to this, about, what's the messaging? Are we doing it the right way? Are we, is the PR doing it the right way? Should we be sending a press release? Like, there's a lot of things that as counselors, we also have full-time jobs, some of us, and juggling all this other stuff. We're not big cities where we're full-time counselors with staff. So we're trying to make decisions that's best for the town of Renfrew. And this is a big one. I'm not disputing the qualifications and everything of our senior managers. And I don't believe this is what that's about. It's about, where is Renfrew going to be in 5 years from now? As far as management goes, as far as, structure goes, as far as leadership goes, all of those things are, and Renfrew is going to grow. It's going to change. There will be probably some types of amalgamations or blending of services. That's probably a given. So we've got this report, like Councillor Hines said, that we paid money for. What are we doing with it? Because we can sit here and go around in circles till 10 o'clock tonight and still come out with the same thing we were asking 5 after 6 today. Like, where are we going? I don't feel we need to keep talking about what we've done. We know what we've done, things we've done that have been good, things we've been done that we get raked over the coals with. You know, 6 years, I finally got it. But where are we going? And you know, if Mayor Eady has issues with the report, you know, Councillor Evans talked about the financial, which I think we all have concerns about. Now, where do we go from here? It's a draft final report. It's not a final report. So at what point is it a final report and council sits down, or a committee or somebody or something? You know, like Revimo said, there's some legal questions in here. Who's taking the lead on getting legal advice on this situation? Is that the treasurer because he's the staff on HR? Is it the finance department? Is it like who, what, where, and when are we doing this and how? Because all 7 of us and senior managers, are we all going to call a lawyer and get our own independent advice and come back? I get frustrated in that we keep going around in circles, and at what point do we just say, okay, you know what? The lead has to go this way. If anybody has any comments or concerns or questions for Mr. Fournier, have it in by this time Tuesday so that he can have a report back to us by the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, hypothetical. And then council reviews it, and then okay, where are we going? Are we following that line? Is it a vote on, are we following a CAO model or a half CAO model or no CAO model? Somewhere along the line, we got to make a decision.
3 choices.
Like,
Like I said to you before, I agree that we need to set a date and get all our comments into Mr. Fournier, because this is only a draft, and then he'll come out with some kind of a final report. It takes a lot of discussion, and I don't disagree with a lot of the report. I agree with some of it, but there's some things in it I don't agree with, whatever, and that's just the way it is. And that's usually when you get any kind of report, you don't agree with the whole thing, but we're here tonight to make a decision as to how we're going to move forward as far as getting it to him for the final report. That's what the committee of the whole meeting is for tonight. And I think right off the top, Councillor Sidney, you made the comment that we need to set a date and get our comments into him. I don't think there's anything else to even actually talk about other than that. I mean, really, that's the line of it. We have different opinions. Then submit our different opinions and let him do his final report. I don't know if I said that right or not, but that's what I feel. We can sit here tonight and we can argue back and forth about all the different issues, but if you want to do that, that's fine. But
so do we need a motion then to pick a date to have our information in to Mr. Fournier? And where's it?
fine with me. Somebody wants to make.
Is it a motion? Is it an agreement? Is it a like?
Let's agree upon a date and do it.
I don't think you need anything formal like that, especially at a committee of the whole. So I think if you just come to a consensus on a date to have your submissions back to Mr. Fournier, that would be ideal. And again, I don't think Stephen's looking to change the report and its basic structure. I think it's just an opportunity to have a good review of it and to provide any final comments. You know, It's not going to be, his recommendations are likely to remain the same. It's just a matter of anything that needs clarified, corrected, that maybe isn't, documented quite correctly or spoken quite accurately. I think that's kind of what he's looking for, just that minor cleanup of any outstanding items in the report. So. And I can circulate Mr. Fournier's email to you all again, so you have it, so you can, certainly submit directly, as all your other input was direct to Mr. Fournier and held in his confidence. So.
Can we do it by this Friday? If people have comments, you must already have them in your head. All you need to do is put it on a piece of paper and wing it off to them.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
Yeah, I was gonna say Friday.
October 2nd it is.
October 2nd?
Yes.
Everybody agree with that?
I'm okay with that.
Sounds like we have a consensus.
So once we do that, then we're looking for him to have it back by what? Are we giving him 2 weeks? I think I mean, as you said, he's not gonna, as Kim said, he's not gonna change a whole lot in it. So let's find a date where are we meeting with him then? And like, let's just make a little plan here of how we're doing it.
I'm sure he'll have to come back to us with another,
Mhm.
another presentation, final presentation, I would think.
Okay.
Revimo.
Yes, and he did offer that he had had some time or capacity to help council with some of the decision making. So, you know, I think he would agree to a couple hours after he's presented the report in days after that to sit down and work through and try and get a decision. So I think, you know, there's that opportunity for him to help facilitate some kind of decision making as well.
Councillor Hines.
Yeah, he did say that he would facilitate, you know, us getting moving on this and just exactly how to discuss it and what we need to discuss and where we need to go. As Peter said, he's done this before, so maybe that's the step 2. We get our comments in, he comes back and addresses the final report and says next step, and here's what you need to discuss. So item A, let's discuss it. Item B, let's discuss it. And then go from there. Where we need to refer questions off for legal or whatever we need to sort out from there. We just then as a council assign it to somebody and ask them to do it and carry on until we get somebody in charge.
So, being that, then we've all agreed that we will have a report in by this coming Friday. Now, will we send that all into, like, say, Clerk Bomer and he'll forward it all?
No, I think we individually email Mr. Fournier himself.
Okay, that's fine with me. I don't care how you do it. Okay.
And so when are we expecting to have him back? Like, let's set all that up and then we know and you can work the rest of your life around that. So if we have it in by the 2nd and we would ask him to maybe come back and talk to us on, I don't know, like some day, the week of Thanksgiving, or have a committee of the whole on the 20th or the 19th, one of those days that is open for council. And then we know where we're going with this.
Now, it's my understanding that Director Aslan's been the point staff member with Mr. Fournier.
Yep.
Yeah. So would it be
You wanna
would it
come
be
on?
advantageous for Director Aslan to reach out to Mr. Fournier tomorrow to say council is going to send in any questions or clarifications by Friday, and when would he be able to then have his report done and a good time to set up to meet? Like, it's all fine and dandy for us to say something, but what's his schedule like? Like, he could be going to BC.
Yeah, I could very well tell him that he's going to be receiving comments. And just to be clear, he was looking for comments from senior management team as well as council members. So we'll all provide council or our comments to him. Maybe I'll confirm how much time he does need to finalize report based on the comments. So I'll touch base with him maybe next Monday as to the extent of the comments he's received and get an idea of how much time he needs. And with the understanding that council, what I'm hearing is they would like to have Mr. Fournier back to meet with council to present his final report and perhaps reserve some time to sit and say, okay, you know, where does council go next? Obviously, it's probably beneficial that they do have somebody that's independent of the senior management team, independent of the council, to kind of steer council through the options at this point and tell you or advise you what advice you need from legal or HR and guide you, you know, through the implementation process. I do agree that the idea in this report was to do it in a manner that was consistent with the senior management team's kind of plans to retire. Obviously, there's different approaches council can take. You know, you may at some point want to have Mr. Fournier or council have discussions with the senior management team about what their plans are and how they fit into a model. So it's not likely to be a one meeting. It's likely to be, you know, setting a direction and what steps are required and go through each steps, and there may be a win-win depending on what alternatives you want to pursue. But certainly to have Mr. Fournier come and talk to council and bounce some ideas off about implementation plans is probably appropriate.
Okay. Anything else? Dr. Hines.
So once Director Aslan, I'm a counselor, once Director Aslan gets that information, we have a council meeting on the 13th of October, and I would assume that we would have that information by then, and perhaps he could provide us with a couple of dates that would work for him, and we would work it out then. And so we're not kind of going back and forth, or even suggest to him if he would be ready by the 19th or the 20th. Those are non-council days. So if he was ready for one of those days, that would be really work out good. Or maybe he could provide us with some other ones so that we can pop to it here.
Okay. Anything else? Just one last time to be very clear, Revimo.
So are we putting a drop dead date when we're going to make a decision, or are we just going to play this by ear and roll it out, and then in May we'll pull it out and look at it again and shelve it because it's too close to an election? Because as I said, you know, yes, we've done a number of great things as you know, and senior management team as well. But leaving a leadership vacuum is not a great thing. And as senior managers prepare to leave the organization, we may be forced into making a decision. So why not make it ahead of time? So I guess, you know, I'd like to see us agree on a drop dead date of a decision by the end of October or November 15th, so that we're not wasting anybody's time after that, or if we don't have a plan developed to move forward. You know, otherwise, you know, we're just gonna be running in circles, and that's never a good look for anybody, and it's not effective or efficient for the organization.
I guess that'll have to depend on his report that comes back. Like, I don't know, there would be I know there's some things about legal issues that needs to be dealt with, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I don't disagree that we need to get this cleaned up as soon as possible, but I don't know if we can set a dead date tonight until we hear his next report. Councillor Hines.
If I might, Your Worship, his report's not going to change substantially, I don't think. As Clerk Bulmer has said, you know, there may be some you know, spelling and some wording, and maybe a little bit of an expansion on some of his points, but it's not going to change. You know, his recommendation won't change overnight. So the, you know, council needs to consider that's the recommendation.
Well, we can always set it for October 31st if you wish, and if we need to change it from there for one reason or another, we can.
Could we possibly set a roadmap and let Director Aslan chat with him and say that, yes, we could be available on the 19th or the 20th or the 26th or 27th? on that date, then we say, okay, by this date, we want, and explain that to Mr. Fournier, that by this date, we need to be stepped through what the options are and what we're gonna make a decision on. I mean, we're just talking about maybe dates here. So, I mean, you can say the 31st if you want, but if he can't have this done and meet with us until the 1st of November, I mean, the 31st doesn't mean anything. Halloween and such.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Sidney.
What if we, again, because dates can change and everything like that, but I agree with Reeve Emo that, if we were to sit here now, we're the 1st of October, the 24th of November is the last council meeting in November. So could we say that we would like to put it on the agenda for a decision on November 24th, barring any unforeseen whatevers that can change, but tonight we've decided that we will have enough information and be educated enough to make a decision at council on November 24th.
Yeah. And that forces us to get on with it.
And then we tell Mr. Fournier that we would like to make the decision by November 24th. Is that?
I think probably
fair?
Dr. Aslan talks to him, whatever, by the next council meeting, he should be able to come back to us and say, I can have it by a certain date, whatever that date may be. And, hopefully maybe even sooner than November 24th.
Okay. Well, we should probably just go with step one. Let Mike do what we've asked him to and have Mr. Fournier come back to us with a date and, say we're going to be available on the 19th and the 20th of October. So pick a date and then go from there. And then we at least have 2 steps done or 2 dates to aim for. And then on that date, we say, all right, you know what? There's some decisions to be made here, but we're going to have this by our council meeting on the 24th of November. We just need to put a plan in place and then everybody's on the same page. But we just need to let Mike speak with him, and we have 2 jobs to do. Let Mike speak with him and come up with a date and get our comments into him by Friday.
Okay, anything else? Reeve Emo.
Yeah, I'll go back to a comment I made, and I'm sorry, Councillor Hines, I'm not sure if you were here for it, but if you take a look at item 4, the implementation of the action plan, essentially what I'd suggested was take a look at that, add another column and pencil in some dates, and I think that's one of the things that's probably the most effective thing, rather than us going around and around in a circle, is maybe that's what we should be including too, Mr. Fournier, is, comments about items 1 to 10. You may want to reorder them. I'm not sure number 1 is is actually number 1. It might be number 2, it might be number 3. But, I think if you focus your comments on those points and maybe reorder them, that gets us a lot of information, but it also then focuses council and SMT and Mr. Fournier on getting us to some dates. The November date is a good one. I'm so glad that we finally got to something like that after 64 minutes. That's good.
Councillor Evans? Okay, any other comments? And in closing, Kirk Bomer, I have to ask you, do you understand the direction here that we're going?
I believe so. I have the luxury of being able to listen back. So, but I think between Mike and I, certainly Mike will get some communications off to Mr. Fournier to look at dates. I'll get the email out for Mr. Fournier to each of you, as I know some of you probably have it, but I'll get that out tomorrow. And just a reminder of the deadline to submit any final comments and input on the draft report. and, you know, we'll move ahead from there. We'll need to discuss, once the meeting date's been set, how that meeting will unfold and, you know, if there's requirement for a closed portion or not, et cetera. So, but I think we got enough to move forward.
Alrighty, so is there anything else? Okay. I guess then I don't have that form in front of me about the proceedings of the council meeting, but do we need that or can we just adjourn since committee of the whole? Sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. We can just call for adjournment and time of adjournment unless there's any other
Okay,
business you want to raise.
is there anything else? Okay, somebody want to move that we adjourn? Councillor Sidney, second by Councillor Cooless. All in favor? Carried. We're now adjourned. Okay, so by Friday, we have to get our work done.